Imagine a place where 16,000 people disappear without a trace, where planes disappear mid-flight, and where an underground pyramid may hold the key to it all. Now stop imagining, because this place is real. It's called the Alaska Triangle, and it might just be the most dangerous place on Earth. Picture a place where the wilderness stretches as far as the eye can see, where jagged mountain peaks pierce the sky and vast forests hide secrets in their shadows. A land where compasses spin wildly, where people vanish without a trace, and where legends speak of creatures beyond imagination. This isn't the setting for some horror movie or fantasy novel. This is the Alaska Triangle, and it's very real. Stretching from Juneau in the southeast to Anchorage in the west and up to Utqiagvik, what used to be called Barrow, on the frigid northern coast, the Alaska Triangle encompasses a staggering 200,000 square miles. That's an area nearly the size of California. But while the Golden State is known for its beaches and movie stars, the Alaska Triangle is known for something far more sinister: disappearances. While researching the Alaska Triangle, I came across the statistic that since 1988, over 16,000 people have vanished in this remote corner of America. That's more than 4 times the national average. However, I think it might actually be a lot worse than that. According to World Population Review, who got their information from the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, as of September of 2023, Alaska has the highest number per capita of missing people. We know that, but how high? Bear with me, I have to put this into perspective. Now, we already know that Alaska is number 1. So, per 100,000 people, my home state of Minnesota is pretty low at 3.41. Woohoo! But let's look at the top 3. Coming in at number 3 is Oklahoma with 16.01. Number 2 is Hawaii with 16.68. The number seems a little high for a place like Hawaii, but then again, the wildfire that destroyed Maui happened on August 8th of 2023, and these numbers are from September of the same year, so that number might be a little higher than normal for them. With that context now firmly in place, coming in at number 1 overall is Alaska with 173.54. I may not be a math genius, but that's a lot higher than 4 times the average. But what makes this place so dangerous? Is it just the harsh environment, or is there something more going on? Well, we certainly would be remiss if we didn't talk about the insane environment that Alaska has. The whole of Alaska includes 663,300 square miles, which is bigger than Texas, California, and Montana put together. It includes 39 mountain ranges, 12,000 rivers, 100,000 glaciers, and 3 million lakes. Kinda puts Minnesota's 10,000 lakes to shame. This isn't just wilderness, it's wilderness on steroids, where the very elements seem to conspire against human survival. You could be out on a nice day hike on a trail in the Chugach National Forest when suddenly the sky darkens. In a matter of minutes, you're caught in a white-out blizzard. The temperature plummets to 40 below and winds howl at near hurricane force. Your compass spins wildly and your GPS cuts out. Sound far-fetched? In the Alaska Triangle, it's just another Tuesday. The temperatures can hit minus 50, minus 60 degrees on a cold winter night. And being from an area that can hit minus 20 to minus 30 at least once every winter, I can tell you firsthand, that's not fun. But it's not just the cold that'll get you. The landscape itself seems designed to swallow people whole. Vast stretches of trackless forest, glaciers riddled with hidden crevices, Let's not forget about the wildlife. Bears, wolves, and other predators that see humans as just another item on the menu. Then there's the Earth itself. The Alaska Triangle sits on a geological powder keg. Earthquakes are as common as rain showers, and active volcanoes dot the landscape like fiery blisters on the face of the Earth. Scientists are now thinking that this particular cluster of 8 islands in the Aleutian Island chain actually form the caldera of another supervolcano like the one in Yellowstone.
I have goosebumps, people!
That's just what we need. There's also the ever-popular scapegoat, methane. As the permafrost melts, it releases pockets of this odorless, invisible gas. In high concentrations, methane can disorient, confuse, and even asphyxiate. Is it me? Does anybody else notice that methane seems to be the go-to villain? Between suffocating hikers, sinking ships at sea, and cow farts, methane is always the bad guy. Yet there's something else at play here, something that defies easy explanation. Take the bizarre magnetic anomalies that pepper the region. In some areas, compasses go haywire, spinning like tops. GPS systems glitch out. Even the most experienced bush pilots find themselves sometimes flying blind. Some scientists point to the weakened magnetic field in parts of Alaska. Others blame intense geomagnetic storms that are more common that close to the Arctic Circle. But these explanations fall short when you consider the sheer number of incidents. The skeptics will tell you it's just nature being nature, that the disappearances, the strange phenomena, that they're all just the result of people underestimating this harsh environment. And sure, that explanation fits some cases, but all of them? In 1950, a military transport plane, a C-54D Skymaster, takes off from Elmendorf Air Force Base, headed for Great Falls, Montana, with 44 souls on board. But they never make it. About 90 minutes into the flight, the plane makes its last radio contact. After that, silence. In 1995, Erin Marie Gilbert, a nearly 6-foot-tall basketball player / cosmetology student, is on a date with a nice young man at the Girdwood Forest Fair. When they try to go home, the car battery is dead. Her date leaves her in the car and goes for help. But when he gets back, Erin is gone and hasn't been seen since. One disappearance that garners headlines around the entire country is the flight of Congressman Nick Begich and House Majority Leader Hale Boggs. In 1972, these two powerful politicians board a plane in Anchorage headed for Juneau. Should be a routine flight. Instead, it becomes one of the most baffling mysteries in American political history. The weather that day was a little dicey. Low visibility, icy conditions, the kind of day that makes pilots nervous. But this isn't some rookie at the controls. This is an experienced crew, with the pilot having 17,000 hours of flight time, flying a well-maintained aircraft. And yet, somewhere between takeoff and landing, they simply vanish. What follows is one of the largest search operations in U.S. history. For 39 days, searchers comb over 325,000 square miles of treacherous Alaskan terrain. That's an area larger than Texas. What do they find? Absolutely nothing. No wreckage, no bodies, not even a stray piece of luggage. It's as if the earth had swallowed them whole. Fun fact, who took Hale Boggs to the airport in Washington, D.C. to catch his initial flight to Anchorage? One young lawyer and aspiring politician named Bill Clinton.
You're kidding me, right?
And the list of missing persons goes on and on. The strangest one, in my humble opinion, comes from an area just a little west of what is considered the Triangle, but it is so good, I have to include it anyway. In 2012, a 66-year-old man named Michael Latry signs up for the Mount Marathon race, which is run every year in Seward. It's a pretty tough run up to the top of this 3,022-foot Mount Marathon, around the turnaround point and back down. The whole thing is just over 3 miles in distance, but the brutal terrain actually puts the race in the extreme category, and runners are advised that if they haven't at least done one practice run up and back, they shouldn't run. Michael has not run up the mountain before, but he's in great shape, he's been training, and he figures he'll be fine. On race day, he's in the second wave of runners that leaves the starting point at 3:15. Now, keep in mind that the average finish time for this race, so up and back, is about an hour and a half. At 5:45, so 2.5 hours after that second wave starts, the race stewards start making their way down, thinking everyone who's going to make it to the top must have done so already. But they are wrong. 200 feet from the top, they meet Michael chugging his way to the top. They ask him his bib number as a way to assess his mental condition. Michael says 548, which is right, and he seems to be just fine. So they tell him, "You're only 200 feet from the turnaround. Keep going. You got this." The race stewards keep going down the hill, figuring he's basically right behind them. If anything happens to him, they'll hear something. But Michael never comes down from that mountain, and no trace of him is ever found. As we dive deeper into this triangular rabbit hole, please keep these disappearances in mind, because in this vast, unforgiving wilderness, the line between the explicable and the impossible seems to start to blur more and more. One such hazy subject that seems to have one massive foot in both the real and fantasy worlds is Bigfoot, or as the locals call it, Sasquatch. And in the Alaska Triangle, sightings of this elusive creature are about as common as snowfall in December. Witnesses describe a beast standing 7 to 10 feet tall, covered in dark, matted fur, with a distinctly human-like gait. And the stench? Well, let's just say you smell it before you see it. But Bigfoot isn't just wandering around aimlessly. Reports cluster around specific areas: the lush forests of southeastern Alaska, the rugged terrain surrounding Mount McKinley, now known as Denali. Some researchers argue that the vast, untamed wilderness of Alaska could indeed support an undiscovered primate species. After all, new species are being discovered in the 21st century. But skeptics counter that these sightings are likely just misidentified bears or moose viewed through the lens of an overactive imagination and maybe wishful thinking. But in Alaska, Bigfoot isn't the only hairy hominid said to roam these parts. Enter the hairy man, a creature straight out of native Alaskan nightmares. It isn't just your friendly neighborhood Sasquatch. No. The hairy man is described as aggressive, territorial, and known for snatching unsuspecting humans. Picture a being with the strength of 10 men, armed with razor-sharp claws and eyes that glow in the dark. Some say it's just another name for Bigfoot. Others insist it's something far more sinister, a creature that blurs the line between animal and monster. But the mysteries of the Alaska Triangle aren't confined to land. Beneath the surface of its countless lakes and rivers, other legends lurk. Take Lake Iliamna, Alaska's largest lake. It's a little to the west of where people usually draw the boundaries of the triangle, but again, this is just too good not to include. Lake Iliamna is 77 miles long and 22 miles wide, making it 168 miles around. For reference, that's about the size of Rhode Island. And it's almost 1,000 feet deep. For decades, locals have reported sightings of a creature that would make Nessie green with envy. Witnesses describe a behemoth 10 to 30 feet long with a dark body, long neck, and flippers that churn the water into a froth. In 2013, Rick Nelson is an energetic young man, adventure touring the state. When he gets to Iliamna, he decides he wants to take a few days and circumnavigate the entire 168 miles around in his kayak. 4 days later, his kayak is found on shore upside down with his personal belongings intact on a pile on shore, not far away. But he is nowhere to be found. So what happened to him? Well, the three best theories are: 1, he came ashore to camp and got attacked by an animal. If that's the case, why is his boat upside down and all of his stuff still intact? Number 2, he capsized close to shore and his stuff washed up on the beach. Well, if that's the case, then it should be easy to locate his body in the shallows. Or number 3, he capsized further offshore and his belongings floated to shore. But if that's the case, how did his belongings end up all together on a pile and not spread out down the beach? 1967, Alaska missionary Chuck Crapuchette reports seeing a monster while flying overhead in his float plane. He spots a large animal in the water and attempts to radio someone on the ground for visual confirmation, but no one can get there fast enough. One of Chuck's friends, I don't know his name, so let's just call him Larry, decides he's going to catch it. Using 5/16-inch stainless steel cable, he attaches 4 big old tuna hooks and baits the hooks with caribou meat. And then he ties the cables to the struts of the float plane and waits. As the plane is just drifting around the lake, Larry's sitting on one of the floats of the plane when suddenly something pulls one of the lines so hard that it jerks the entire plane enough to send Larry into the water. The plane is towed off as he makes his way to shore. He walks for miles around the edge of the lake, following the plane until finally he just gives up. When he actually does recover the plane, 3 of the cables are missing, and on the one that remains, the large 8 to 9-inch hook is completely straightened. Those who have witnessed the Lake Iliamna monster describe it pretty much the same way other witnesses to other sea serpents like Nessie in Scotland and Champ, right between New York and Vermont, do. Pretty much looks like a plesiosaur, a marine reptile thought to have gone extinct with the dinosaurs. Others suggest might be an undiscovered species of giant sturgeon or sleeper shark. Maybe. Lake Iliamna is connected to the ocean by the Kvichik River, which flows from the western end of the lake into Bristol Bay in the Bering Sea. Well, whatever it is, it's big enough to capsize boats and smart enough to avoid definitive proof of its existence. But that's just the start of the Alaskan cryptids list. There's the Tezuruk, a massive sea serpent from Inuit folklore said to snatch unsuspecting people from docks and piers. Thunderbirds soar overhead, their wing beats creating storms that shake the very mountains. Also stalking the wilderness is the Uriuli, a Bigfoot-like creature that's more man than beast, with an eerie, almost human face. How many different kinds of Bigfoot did they have? And let's not forget the Kushtaka, shape-shifting creatures from Tlingit mythology that are part human, part otter, and all terror. These tricksters are said to lure unwary travelers to watery graves, or they save them from a watery grave only to turn them into another Kushtaka. The Kushtaka are a lot like other cryptids in that they have the ability to shapeshift and call out to unsuspecting victims using familiar voices. But unlike most cryptids, they have the additional skill of being able to read the minds of their targets and appear in a form that echoes the victim's biggest fears. Back in 2007, Diana Lynn Tucker, her husband, and some friends were taking a boat excursion from Ketchikan to Juneau when they decided to dock in Frederick Sound at a dock just opposite of Petersburg. Now, for reference, Those of you who have been fans of The In-Between or are familiar with the strangest story ever told, check the link in the description. Diana's boat party rolls on up to the shore less than 15 miles from where that nightmare took place. Anyway, it's about 11:15ish when they decide to dock for a picnic lunch. Diana and her friend Betsy decide to take a walk in the woods just to check it out. Diana has her camera with her and she wants to take some pictures. There are lots of different paths, so Diana and Betsy each take one and start walking. Diana's path looks like a well-worn path that goes a little deeper into the woods. She goes in a little bit and sees a clearing up ahead, so she keeps going. As soon as she breaks the circle of that clearing, all the summertime forest noises around her stop. No birds, no wind, not even bugs, which for Alaska in the summertime is pretty amazing. Before she even has time to process the dead quiet, she hears the ear-piercing shriek of a giant bird. That shriek immediately brought her back to when she was a little girl, when she and her two brothers were watching Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, and her brothers made her believe it was real and that the birds outside their window were going to attack her, a fear she carried around for a long time. Diana had been sure she was over it, but the visceral reaction her body has to that shriek tells her she's wrong. She closes her eyes, trying to wish away the nightmare, but when she opens them again, she sees thousands of birds, all different kinds, but all black, filling the trees around her. She tries to run or scream or something, but she's frozen in that spot. Maybe by fear, but she feels more like it's some outside force in control. As she tries to tell herself, it's just a dream, it's just a dream, the entire horde of birds all take flight at once and start circling around her, blocking out the sun. The circling swarm starts to descend and starts to peck at her, pulling her hair and her clothes. Then it starts to peck at her skin, tearing little chunks of flesh away. Diana discovers she can move again, but she has nowhere to go. So she hits the dirt, curls up as tightly as she can, and swats away as many birds as she can. The pain from these thousands of birds pecking at her everywhere is extraordinary, and she feels herself rising up and looking down at her own body as it is being torn to pieces. But a blinding flash of light brings Diana back to where she was standing when this whole nightmare started. She looks over her arms and her legs, and everything looks good except for some pretty deep scratches on her arms. However, she looks around and only sees the path underneath her feet. No clearing. She looks at her watch, which says 3:30, when she hears Betsy calling for her. Diana bends down to grab her camera, accidentally hits the shutter release, and takes off running back to Betsy. Betsy sees Diana running at her, all freaked out with blood all over her arms, and she's like, "What's wrong? Did you fall or something?" And Diana just tells her, "We need to get out of here." They hurry back to the boat, and Diana convinces everyone that they should have lunch across the Sound in Petersburg. Once they get there and get settled in for lunch, Diana looks at her camera and the picture she accidentally took as she was leaving the forest. It's time-stamped 3:30, just like her watch, but everyone else's watches say it's not even noon at this point. Where exactly did those 4 hours go? Okay, as if vanishing planes, vanishing time, and elusive creatures aren't enough, the Alaska Triangle has another trademark phenomena. It is a hotbed for UFO activity. We're talking about flying saucers, mysterious lights, and maybe even alien bases. Let's start with a case that sent shockwaves through the aviation world. November 17th, 1986. Captain Kenju Terauchi, an ex-fighter pilot and senior airline pilot, with more than 10,000 hours of flight experience is assigned to fly a Japan Airlines cargo flight 1628 from Paris to Reykjavik to Anchorage and on to Tokyo. As they're cruising over Alaska, minding their own business, on their way to Anchorage, the crew spots something that shouldn't be there. 2 objects flanking their Boeing 747. We're not talking about some distant lights here. These things are close enough that the pilot can make out their shape, their movements, and even feel the heat they're giving off. Captain Terauchi radios in to the Anchorage Air Route Traffic Control Center.
Do you guys have any other traffic in the area? That's, negative.
For 50 minutes, these UFOs, joined later by another ship estimated to be as big as an aircraft carrier, play cat and mouse with the jumbo jet. They're tracked on radar, both from the plane and ground control, for 31 of those minutes. When the objects finally vanish, they don't just fade away. They take off at impossible speeds, leaving the experienced crew scratching their heads. But this isn't some isolated incident. The skies over the Alaska Triangle have been buzzing with unexplained activity for decades. Take the 1950 Fairbanks sighting. Multiple witnesses, including military personnel, reported a massive disc-shaped object hovering over Ladd Air Force Base, which is now Fort Wainwright. This thing stuck around for hours, like it was checking out our defenses. Now, everybody say it with me. Swamp gas, weather balloons, temperature inversions. Trust me, the officials tried every explanation in the book. But when you've got trained pilots and military observers all seeing the same thing, those explanations start to sound a bit thin. But the crown jewel of Alaska's alien lore has to be Mount Hayes. This mountain, which is kind of a sister mountain to Denali, has been the subject of some wild speculation over the years. Remote viewers, psychics employed by the government in the Cold War, claim to have seen a massive alien base hidden inside the mountain. Now I know what you're thinking. Psychics? Really? But some of these remote viewing sessions were part of Project Stargate, a real CIA program that ran for decades. These weren't just some random folks with a crystal ball. These were trained operatives whose findings were taken seriously enough to warrant further investigation. According to these reports, Mount Hayes isn't just home to a few little green men. We're talking about a full-blown monitoring station, potentially keeping tabs on our entire planet. Some even believe that recovered alien technology is being studied there, hidden away from prying eyes. Of course, the government denies everything, but, and again, they would, wouldn't they? The area around Mount Hayes has seen increased security and restricted airspace over the years, which the military chalks up to standard military operations. Sure. But as long as we're on the subject of secret military missions, let's talk about the granddaddy of all Alaska Triangle conspiracies, the Dark Pyramid. The story goes that in 1992, during seismic testing after a Chinese nuclear detonation, scientists allegedly detect something massive underground. Suddenly, men in black suits swoop in, news reports vanish, witnesses climb up, and just like that, the Dark Pyramid slips back into the shadows. Some insiders even claim the military's known about this structure since the 50s. There are whispers of secret facilities, restricted airspace, and covert operations, all centered around this mysterious monument. If the rumors are true, we are talking about a gigantic structure, twice the size of the Great Pyramid of Giza, buried deep beneath the Alaskan wilderness just to the northeast of Denali. We are talking about a behemoth, 550 feet tall, hidden 700 feet underground. But this isn't just some crumbling ruin. Witnesses describe a black stone-like material with the surface so polished it seems to drink in the light. Who built it? Don't know. When did they build it? Don't know that either. Then what is it? Well, some say it's an ancient power plant built by a civilization that makes our modern tech look like tinker toys. These theorists claim it's part of a global network generating and harnessing energy in ways we can't even comprehend. How much power are we talking about? Enough to power the entirety of Canada. But other people are looking to the stars for answers. The alien technology camp believes that this pyramid is some sort of extraterrestrial outpost. Maybe it's a communication device beaming signals to the far reaches of the galaxy. Or maybe it's an energy source for spacecraft, a cosmic pit stop in the middle of nowhere.
What did you have in mind?
I know this great restaurant at the end of the universe.
Then there are those who think even bigger. They say the Dark Pyramid can manipulate the very fabric of space and time, a portal to other dimensions, or a time machine buried in the permafrost. Could this explain the countless disappearances in the triangle? Are people literally slipping through the cracks in reality? Maybe. Now, I hear you barking. How could something like this stay hidden? Well, the entire thing is underground with reportedly only one way to get down to see it. So all they have to do is guard that one entry point. And I know that sounds incredibly oversimplified, but remember, this area of Alaska is amazingly harsh territory that rarely attracts visitors. So it's not like there's a whole lot of guarding to be done. The official line doesn't exist. It's all fairy tales and fevered imaginations. However, more than one whistleblower has stepped forward to tell the world that this conspiracy theory is indeed conspiracy fact. Eyewitness accounts from pilots who have flown there to drop off supplies, and a secondhand account from a man whose dad worked there. And I get that secondhand testimony isn't the greatest. However, what he can attest to firsthand is the scale model that his dad built when he came home that powered their entire farm. Put it this way, there is enough evidence out there for the existence of this hidden wonder that one man actually went out there on a mission to find it. The only reason we know about it is because he never came back. On May 27th, 2020, Nathan Campbell, a 41-year-old husband and dad from Wasilla, hires a charter plane out of Talkeetna to fly him to Carey Lake, just a little northwest of Denali, and drop him there for the summer. During the flight, he tells the pilot he plans to spend the summer looking for the Dark Pyramid. Pilot says it looked like Nathan had the right gear and enough food to last him for the summer. So he says goodbye, and I'll pick you up on September 15th. But when the 15th comes, Nathan is nowhere to be found, and he had stopped texting his wife back in June. Searchers find his campsite, which looks like it hasn't been touched since June, but no clues as to Nathan's fate. To this day, Nathan Campbell is one of those 16,000 missing in Alaska. Now, surely with all these strange occurrences, someone must be investigating, right? Well, you'd be correct. The Alaska Triangle has drawn the attention of scientists, psychics, and everyone in between. Let's start with the strangest of the bunch, remote viewing. Imagine being able to see distant locations just by using your mind. Sounds like science fiction, right? Well, the US government didn't think so. Remember Project Stargate that we mentioned earlier? That was a CIA-funded program that ran from the 1970s to 1995, investigating psychic phenomena. One of their star performers, a remote viewer named Pat Price, claimed to see something extraordinary inside Mount Hayes. He's the guy who said he could see not just a mountain, but a full-blown alien base. And he wasn't alone. Other remote viewers reported similar findings: underground facilities, advanced technology, and beings that were decidedly from out of town. But it's not just psychics peering into the triangle's mysteries. Teams of scientists braved the harsh Alaskan wilderness, armed with more conventional tools. Geologists map magnetic anomalies that could explain navigation issues. Meteorologists study weather patterns so extreme they seem almost supernatural. Biologists search for evidence of creatures that shouldn't exist, at least according to our current understanding of the natural world. And let's not forget the UFO hunters. These dedicated researchers monitor the skies, interview witnesses, and try to separate fact from fiction in a field rife with wild speculation. They're not just looking for little green men. They're searching for answers to some of the most perplexing questions about our reality. Of course, no discussion about scientific research in the Triangle can be complete without talking about HAARP, or the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. Auroral. That's really hard to say. This massive array of antenna, located just southeast of Mount Hayes, officially studies the ionosphere, decidedly outside of the Triangle. However, some claim its real purpose is far more sinister, manipulating the weather, interfering with human minds, setting off earthquakes. Again, all things decidedly outside of the Triangle. But one has to ask, could the unintended consequences of this research possibly be adding to the anomalies happening inside the Triangle? Now, my gut reaction to that is no. Strange things have been happening inside the Triangle long before 1995 when they flipped the switch at HAARP. I would bet everyone else in the world feels the effects of HAARP far more than the people in the Triangle do. But that's a totally different episode. However, there's one interesting link I found when it comes to HAARP. One of the top scientists trying to warn the world about the possible negative effects of HAARP? A guy by the name of Dr. Nick Begich Jr. Sound familiar? He should. His dad, Nick Begich Sr., is one of the two congressmen we mentioned earlier whose plane disappeared between Anchorage and Juneau in 1972. Huh. Of course, the government denies all of this. We only use HAARP to study the air. We all know they never lie. But even without the help of the government, there are enough people studying the area in every way imaginable. Why don't we have any answers? Well, the Alaska Triangle doesn't give up its secrets easily. The sheer vastness of the wilderness makes thorough exploration a Herculean task. Extreme weather limits research windows to only a few weeks each year. And then there's the phenomena themselves, pretty dang rare, often seeming to actively avoid observation. Not exactly a recipe for success, but God bless them, these researchers keep going back and keep pushing harder, because the next expedition, the next experiment, the next remote viewing session could be the one that finally pulls back the curtain
Has spoken!
on one of the world's great mysteries. And in a place where the impossible seems to happen on a daily basis, who knows what they might discover? And even if we do discover that the legend of the Alaska Triangle is more fiction than fact, doesn't make the place any less fascinating. Because in the end, whether it's aliens or angels or portals or just plain bad luck, the Alaska Triangle reminds us of something important. It reminds us that our world is still full of mysteries. And as long as people keep disappearing, as long as strange lights dance in the sky, as long as creatures beyond imagination lurk in the shadows, the Alaska Triangle will continue to captivate us. It will continue to lure the brave, the curious, and the foolhardy who just want to decipher the indecipherable. So next time you find yourself in the wilds of Alaska, Keep your eyes open and your mind even more so. Because you never know, you might just stumble upon the key to unlocking one of the world's great mysteries. Or you might become part of the mystery yourself. That was like trying to drink from a fire hose with a straw. We may not have hit every watering hole in the strange and mysterious universe, but we sure hit a lot of them. But if you've made it through this tidal wave of weirdness with me and are still intrigued by the idea of how so many people can just vanish without a trace, you can check out our missing persons deep dive right here. Be careful out there, and I'll see you here again on the In-Between.